Have you ever heard of a Cinderella story set in Africa? Not the one with a pumpkin carriage or flying fairy godmother, no. This one happened in a town called Uromi, deep in Edo State, where the wind smells like roasted plantain and the trees whisper ancient secrets when the moon rises. There lived a young girl named Zola, not a loud one, not a flashy one, but the kind of girl whose silence spoke volumes. Her mother died when she was little, and after her father remarried a rich trader from Benin, he passed too. From that day, Zola became the invisible member of the family. She woke up before the roosters crowed and went to bed after the stars had slept. She scrubbed, she cooked, she fetched water, and still, her name was only shouted when there was blame. But let me tell you one thing, Zola had fire in her spirit. Even if she wore torn wrappers and old slippers, even if her stepsisters, Favor and Mabel, mocked her every morning, she had one thing they didn't, grace. The kind of grace that made plants bloom when she passed and made old women smile when she greeted them at the stream. Now, let me take you to the royal palace. The king had only one son, Prince Ben, fine boy, smart, but bored. He didn't want a wife who only knew how to apply makeup and curtsy. He wanted a girl who had sense, who had strength, and who could match his dream step for step. So, one day, instead of doing a regular ball like other kingdoms, the king announced something unusual: let there be a festival of crafts. Any young woman in the land must present a talent, weaving, storytelling, cooking, music, anything that shows her heart and skill. The winner shall marry the prince. The whole town buzzed like a broken generator. Girls rushed to the market for thread, paint, beads, anything. Madame Itohon dressed her daughters in lace and ankara, hired tailors, and paid a musician to teach Favor how to sing, even though her voice sounded like a cat in distress. Mabel tried to make puff-puff but nearly burned down the backyard. Zola asked if she could go. They laughed until they coughed. Go where? With what talent? You that only knows how to scrub floor. But that night, while sweeping outside, Zola heard drums in the distance and followed the sound. She stumbled upon an old carving shed at the edge of the forest, where her father used to take her before he passed. Inside, she found his old tools. Her hands touched the wood and her fingers remembered. She used to carve small birds and turtles as a child. With tears in her eyes and a racing heart, Zola began to work. All night, by lantern light, she carved, not just anything, she carved the storyboard of her life, her mother, her father, the home that used to smile, and how she rose through pain. The final piece was a sculpture of a young girl holding a broom like a staff, like a queen in disguise. The festival day came. The town square was bright with color and noise. Favor sang, badly. Mabel recited a poem she copied from a magazine. Other girls danced and displayed jewelry. But when Zola arrived, barefoot, with her carvings wrapped in an old cloth, everyone gasped. She walked straight to the prince and unwrapped her art. Silence fell like nightfall. No gold, no glitter, just truth, beauty, and strength in every line. The moment Zola unveiled her carvings in the middle of the festival square, the whole place went quiet. You could hear a pin drop on palm fronds. Every eye widened, every mouth hung open like Accra stalls at sunrise. These weren't just carvings. They were stories, raw, heartfelt, full of life and memory. Prince Ben stood there, frozen. He was used to flattery, used to surface beauty, but this was so deep. He took a step closer. Who made this? He asked, his voice low but filled with awe. The girl before him wore a simple wrapper and a veil that covered her face from the nose down. Her hands were dusty, her feet bare. She didn't say a word. I want to see you, the prince said gently. Please, your face. Zola's heart pounded like village drums. She looked toward the crowd and saw them. Madame Itohon, standing there with smug, dismissive faces, not knowing that the girl who'd just stolen the spotlight was the very one they made scrub yam stains and fetch firewood every day. Panic struck her like lightning. She shook her head quickly, took 2 steps back, and then, before anyone could blink, she turned and ran. She left the carvings there in the prince's hands and disappeared into the crowd like evening breeze. Wait, the prince shouted. Guards! Find her! The girl with the veil. But Zola was gone. Swift like a whisper in Hamatan, she darted down the alleys, around the palace walls, through the market, until she reached the small bush path that led back home. Her heart was beating like talking drums at a naming ceremony. Back at the palace, the prince held the carvings close, staring at them like sacred relics. "This is the one," he said. "She's the one. I must find her." The next morning, the prince did something no one expected. He cancelled all the remaining displays and issued a royal order. "Bring me every carving, every sculpture, from every corner of the land. I want to find the hands that shaped this art." They searched high and low. Every woodcarver, every apprentice, every craftsman came forward. None of them could recreate what Zola had done. It was too unique, too personal. Then the prince had an idea. "Take this carving," he said, "and show it to the people. Someone out there knows this story. Someone has seen this art before. I will wait." Meanwhile, back in Madame Itohan's compound, things were getting hotter than pepper soup. Zola returned and slipped the veil into a pot of soup before anyone could notice. She was careful, quiet, but the stepsisters had started putting two and two together. "That art at the palace," Mabel whispered. "Didn't it look like the stuff Daddy used to do before he died?" "And Zola used to follow him," Favor added, eyes narrowing. Madame Itohan waved it off. "She carved that. With which time, when she's too busy scrubbing my floors." But doubt had entered the room like smoke. Later that day, town criers carried the prince's message: "Whoever made the carvings must return. The prince has kept them safe. Her face remains in his heart. He waits." That night, Zola sat outside again, staring at the moon, thinking. She had poured her soul into those carvings. The prince had seen her truth. But could she ever stand before the kingdom, face unveiled, and be seen, not as a maid, but as a queen? Then, like magic, not from a fairy godmother, but from guts and grace, she stood. The next day, in front of the palace, a quiet star spread through the crowd. A girl walked in, barefoot, her wrapper plain, her eyes steady. She carried a small block of wood and a carving knife. Right in front of the prince, without a word, she sat down and began to carve. Each stroke of her blade told a story. Her fingers didn't hesitate. The crowd hushed. When she finished, she handed it to the prince. It was a sculpture of herself, a veil and all, with one hand holding a chisel, and the other reaching for the stars. The prince looked at it, then looked at her. "Your face," he said, softly again, "please." This time, Zola did not run. She slowly lifted the veil from her face. The sun caught her skin, her eyes, her quiet strength. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Prince Ben smiled. "You are the one." He stood, took her hand, and turned to the people. "This is your queen, not because of beauty, not because of magic, but because she dared to show her soul when others showed style." And the kingdom cheered like never before. Madame Itohan fainted again. Favor and Mabel quietly melted into the crowd. No one even noticed them leave. And Zola rose, not from a royal family, not with a glass slipper, but with bare feet, blistered hands, and a heart carved from courage. She didn't just marry a prince, she became a symbol. That every girl, no matter how hidden, how unheard, how veiled by life's struggles, can rise and shine. The end.